Hey everyone, I'm here with composer Jenni Brandon, whom I've had the great pleasure of collaborating with for a new composition of hers titled Cacophony for solo clarinet and delay pedal. Now, Jenni, both me and my students have really enjoyed playing your works over the past few years, but before we get started, can you perhaps tell us a bit about yourself or maybe how you would describe your compositional style?
Sure. And thanks for chatting with me and for this whole process and project because it's been really fun. Um, so my style compositional, I definitely um, go towards writing a lot about nature and the natural world. As is apparent by some of the stuff I think your students have played as well. I tend to really like to write lyrically and melodically. That comes from my background as a singer. I find over the years that I've really gravitated towards writing these very melodic gestures that, I often say, a lot of the instruments, will feel very much like a voice singing. And so I tend to bring that into my music as well.
So, when we first started talking about doing a collaboration, what would you say specifically drew you into that combination of the clarinet sound with live effects?
Well, it was something I'd never done before and hadn't really been exposed to until we started talking. And it was just such a fascinating exploration of how you could take, these two things, clarinet and pedal here, and bring them together to create this entirely new world. And so just the opportunity to do that was just really cool and really exciting, to try something new, and to kind of, dip my toe into a place that was very different for me. But what I've discovered is that I love it. And it really opens up this world of creating, ethereal places. And I like to do a lot of, sound painting, right? And so I think that the pedal really opens up that opportunity with this combination of the clarinet.
Considering this is your first time writing for electroacoustic clarinet, what are some of the things that you perhaps remember going through your mind at first when you
Mhm.
started working on Cacophony? Because, like you said, you weren't really, used to these sort of sounds yet. So I'd be curious to get a little bit of a sneak peek at, or a little bit more detail in terms of your thought process.
Sure. I think it felt like learning a new language in that regard. And because it was so new, even you and I worked together so much, and you were so helpful in breaking down all of the opportunities and options, from this pedal with the clarinet. And and at first it was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And then as you started, walking me through everything, and being so clear, and playing so many examples of what was possible, I started to settle into this idea of, okay, this is really just, I mean, it's another tool in our, toolbox of expression as composers. And it's another, we were talking a little while ago about this idea of being like almost another instrument, that is a duet partner with the clarinet. And so I think that that was really something exciting, and it's fresh. That was the other thing too. It was such a fresh way to approach writing a piece. And so it was really exciting. Like it was, it's like, you know, picking up an instrument and learning it for the first time. Like as you begin to learn more and more, and you get a little better at understanding how it all works, suddenly it opens up a whole new world, and like new things click into place, and new possibilities for creating colors and sound. So it was a fun journey. I went from a little terrified to what else can we do with this?
What are some things that you found particularly fun or challenging about the writing process? You touched on some of these things, so I guess I'll clarify a little bit too. So, what would you say was perhaps a favorite sound of yours to explore in this work?
Sure. Yeah. So um, I always love the color of timbral trills. And I always love how they shimmer, like just on the instrument by itself, it just shimmers. But in this piece, there's a particular section that uses these timbral trills to kind of float above this hazy gesture that's in the clarinet. And I think we're using the digital delay
Yes.
at that point. And it's creating this sort of mist, this wall of sound, as the cacophony is kind of building. And the use of the timbral trills kind of starts to float above that mistiness. And so with the use of the pedal for this, wow, I mean, just the opportunity to be able to sort of create this layer and then create this other, like, multiple textures on a solo instrument was so cool. And I love that it shimmers even more because of the delay on it as well. So it's such a great, I think it's just a great effect. And I was really excited to discover that.
Before we play this preview for y'all, Jenni, is there anything else you would like to tell us about the piece in terms of inspiration, background, anything like that?
Sure. So the idea of cacophony, and this it's a piece about birds singing at dawn, and some of the inspiration for this piece came from a big tree that sits outside of, and actually in front of, my neighbor's house, and it's got this huge canopy. And in the spring, especially at dawn and at dusk, the birds all come to this tree and they start singing and they start singing, and then suddenly it is just a cacophony of sound. And then sometimes they'll get startled and the sound just stops and then it starts right back up again. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun in this piece to kind of find that cacophony energy of these birds? So that's what this piece explores, are these birds, a lone bird singing at dawn, then joined by some other birds, and then a whole bunch of birds, and then finally everybody just goes back to that single bird song and they go about their day. So that's kind of the basic idea of the piece, and just kind of getting to create this world using the delay pedal and using the clarinet. And it was just so much fun, so much fun to do this, and to work with you, Chris. Like, it's been such a delightful collaborative project.
having gone through this whole learning process in writing for this sort of combination of sounds, what kind of tips or advice would you have for composers wanting to get into this?
Sure. My advice is work with you to learn about these pedals. And that's it. No, but I'm serious about that because you're such a great teacher at explaining this, and you're so passionate about this, this new world of effects. And so composers, as you're working on a piece for something like this, work with your performer and really get them to dig into the nuts and bolts for you, because it makes a world of difference. Sit down and just spend a couple hours having someone really walk you through it, because that's the collaborative part of this, right? And that's the joy of a project like this, is that we get to work one-on-one to really understand. And that's going to make the piece so good. It's going to make it so idiomatic for the instruments. I'm saying instruments because there's the pedal involved as well. So that's what I would say. And then try stuff. Try it and see what works. We were working on the piece back and forth, and we had a couple sections where the transitions just weren't right. It was a little crunchier than I wanted the cacophony to be. And, we went back and forth on it to really work that out. And so that's an important part of the process for this, especially because you need to hear it and then go back and tweak it. So work one-on-one, get lots of examples played for you, and collaborate.
One of the things that was helpful for us to talk about, for example, was just in terms of notation, because as I mentioned earlier in this talk, it's not really standardized yet. So it's just like coming up with a way for you to feel like it's the clearest for whoever's going to be playing this, to be able to know like when to switch various effects on and off, what kind of settings they need to set these things to. And so that's something that you can play around with for a while. And there's, at the moment at least, there's not really a strictly right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you think is going to get the message through the most clearly.
And that's really helpful, just for composers thinking about the clarity of the score. Go look at some scores now, because, Chris has been doing so much work, right? You've been doing all this work on these scores and, putting scores together and arranging stuff yourself. Look at some examples of these scores to kind of get an idea of where it might work in your score, and then make it as clear as possible, just like you said.
Well, with that, I think we're about good here. So thank you so much, Jenni, for joining us. It was really awesome to have you here to talk about all of this stuff. I love the fact that we're getting, not only the performer's perspective, but also the composer's perspective from this as well. Because like you said, it really just comes down to that sort of collaborative idea when it comes to an aspect of clarinet performance that still has lots to explore. That being said, if y'all are interested in performing this work, I will say that there is still some room left in the commissioning consortium. So feel free to reach out to me through mothersoulclarinet.com. If you're interested in Jenni's works in general, you can visit her website at jennibrandon.com. She's got some wonderful stuff for clarinet, including a version with delay of one of her previous works, Chanson de la Nature for solo clarinet. So again, thank you so much, Jenni. It was great
Thank
to
you.
great to have you here.